Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here for the City Council meeting and public hearing, July 20th, 2026. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Note for the record, all members of council are present and accounted for, except for Councilman Dreja, who will not be able to join us this evening. And as always, we begin our City Council meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're willing and able, please stand and join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for those of you who are working from the printed agenda, there have been a couple of changes. So I don't want you to have to sit around here all evening. If you are here for certain items, the following items have been deferred or withdrawn and will not be considered this evening. And those items are PH-26-04. That's the Unified Development Code amendments for the business and recreational vehicles. We won't be taking that item up this evening. MP-26-08, 5905, Windward Parkway Restaurant, Windward MP Pod 14. That item will not be covered this evening. And PH-26-12, Royal 400 Data Center change of condition. So if you're here for those items, you might have saved yourself a little bit of time this evening. Next item up on our agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of the City Council meeting minutes from the meeting of July 13th, 2026, the financial management report for the month ending May 31st, 2026, the agreement with Lionheart Works Memorandum of Understanding, agreement with Senior Services North Fulton Memorandum of Understanding. Is there anyone from council who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right. Mr. Shapiro, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor.
Do we have any public comment cards on the consent agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
All right. So, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Councilman Brady, a second by Councilman Driscoll. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll move right along to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. The announcement of the public hearing procedures. Ms. Eswine.
An individual requesting to be heard on a matter related to the purpose of the hearing must be recognized by the mayor before addressing the city council. Upon rising to speak, the speaker must identify himself or herself and furnish a home or business address before proceeding with any comments or remarks. The council will allow proponents a total of 10 minutes to speak in support of an application. Opponents will be allowed 10 minutes to speak in opposition. Comments are accepted first from the applicant, followed by persons speaking in favor, and then from those in opposition. Upon conclusion of any opposing comment or presentations, the mayor will allow the applicant to offer a rebuttal if any time is remaining in the originally allotted 10 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Mr. Woodman, I believe you have the first item this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first item before you is a request for conditional use to allow for the construction of a 2,300 square foot columbarium. It's on a 48-acre property. The conditional use is requested to allow cemetery for the proposed columbarium. And I have the location map on the overhead. This property is located at 535 Rucker Road. This is the St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church property. Property is zoned AG Agriculture and CUP Community Unit Plan. It's developed as a church. Property was annexed into the city from unincorporated Fulton County in 2005. The city of Roswell is located to the west and south of the site. The Welford Trace and Wallace Woods subdivisions are located to the east, and Fern Creek Registry is located to the north. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is public institutional education, which supports the applicant's request. St. Thomas Aquinas has been operating at this property since 1972. The proposed columbarium is similar to a mausoleum where human cremains are housed in small compartments in a permanent vertical structure such as a wall. The proposed columbarium is classified as a cemetery, and the city's Unified Development Code defines a cemetery as land used or dedicated to the burial or internment of human or animal remains, including crematoriums, mausoleums, necessary sales and maintenance facilities. And the UDC allows cemetery as a conditional use in the AG Agriculture and SU Special Use zoning districts. According to the application, the proposed columbarium will only be accessible during daylight hours. Let me show you some street view of property. You're probably familiar, but this is the building closest to Rucker Road, and the columbarium is proposed just to the west side of that building. So this is entering the site. This is that same building here, and on the west side of the building, this area, this landscaped area here is where the columbarium is proposed. Directly across from the proposed columbarium is the west property line. So you can see in the there's a fence line here with evergreen shrubs planted along it. I'm showing you this because there are some spaces where the evergreens are missing, and we do have a condition requiring, if approved, that the evergreens would be filled in a couple locations. And to the site plan, so this is the overall site plan of the 48-acre site. This is Rucker Road up on the north end of the site. That northernmost building is right here, and the proposed columbarium is right on the west side of that, and I have a zoom in of that area. So this is the existing building, the west side of the building. This is the 2,300 square foot columbarium. The dimensions are about 62 feet by 48 feet. It's a walled memorial garden containing a statue, benches, landscaping, and hardscape. The walled area is gated on two sides, here and here, and they're proposing sidewalk connections to provide access. This dimension here represents the dimension between the nearest point of the columbarium and the west property line. That is approximately 82 feet. And there would be no specimen trees that will be impacted in this area as a result of the columbarium. And then just a couple renderings that the applicant provided. This is a bird's eye view looking down at this proposed memorial garden, and this is within the space. So of course we looked at the review criteria for the conditional use. We believe the proposal would not have significant impacts on surrounding properties. The proposed columbarium is very small. It will function as an accessory use to the church. Also found examples of columbariums in conjunction with a church in nearby jurisdictions, so St. Bridget Catholic Church and St. Benedict Catholic Church, and Johns Creek and I believe Duluth. And we also found that there was a memorial garden at Alpharetta Presbyterian Church. The applicant provided a citizen participation report indicating that they received public feedback with questions and comments about impacts to a stream, whether the use would include traditional cemetery with full body burials, concerns about noise, traffic, impacts to Rucker Road, and a comment that the proposal represented a beautiful design. This was shown to the public at the June 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There were public comments both in support and in opposition. The concerns that were noted were noise, traffic. They did not want burials, and concern with the overall growth of activity on Rucker Road. And then Planning Commission considered the applicant's request at their July 9th meeting. There was one public comment in support and one public comment in opposition. Again, concerns over hours of operation, noise, light spillover. Wanted to make sure that the applicant was held to the exact footprint that they were showing on the site plan, and buffering. Ultimately, Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval, subject to the 3 staff recommended conditions in the staff report. And the staff report does include a condition tying it to the site plan submitted, so tying it to the 2,300 square foot columbarium. And then there's a condition requiring installation of evergreens along the west property line where gaps exist. And that concludes the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Woodman on this item? Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to come forward?
So my name's Michael Boland. I live at 148 Holland Street, Marietta, Georgia, 30064. So I'm the managing partner of Smith Boland Architects. I'm here to represent St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church, as well as the Archdiocese of Atlanta, who technically is the applicant and the property owner. The church is the user. So I think Michael covered the project perfectly. I don't think there's really anything to add. I brought a PowerPoint, but I don't think I need to waste your time with it. And so I'll stop right here and answer any questions that you have for me.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Great presentation.
Perfect. Nice and easy.
Ms. Shapiro? Or Husky, my apologies.
We have no public comment cards.
However, if there's anyone that would like to come forward and speak in favor of this item, now's your opportunity to do so. I don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment in favor. Do we have any public comment in opposition? I don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment in opposition to the applicant. Since there was no public comment, there's no need for an applicant rebuttal. Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion this evening to approve CU-26-07, St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church columbarium as presented this evening by staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Markle, a second by Councilwoman Reeves. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So the next item will be MP-26-09, CU-26-08, V-26-13, One Life Fitness, Delta Credit Union, MP, Master Plan. Mr. Woodman, once again, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item before you is a request for master plan amendment, conditional use, and variances to allow for the construction of a 2-story, 55,000 square foot building to be used by One Life Fitness. The property is 6.25 acres, and it is located in the North Point overlay. Master plan amendment is requested to the Delta Community Credit Union Master Plan to add athletic facility as a conditional use, and a conditional use is requested to allow One Life Fitness to operate an athletic facility on the property. There are 3 variances. The variance to allow parking between the building and the street, to increase the maximum building setback, not the minimum building setback, but a maximum building setback from Haynesbridge Road and Rockmill Road, and a variance to allow the impervious area of surface parking stalls to exceed the impervious area of buildings. We did that code regulation in the North Point area to discourage all the surface parking lots that we were having. So we're holding that the parking stalls, the impervious area of parking stalls couldn't exceed the impervious area of the building footprint that it served. And I have the location map on the overhead. This property is 0 North Fulton Expressway. This is the northeast corner of Haynesbridge Road and Rockmill Road at the Georgia 400 interchange. Undeveloped property, zoned O&I, office institutional. As I mentioned, it is subject to the Delta Community Credit Union Master Plan. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is corporate office, which does support the applicant's proposal. The master plan was approved in 2006. It allowed office and bank with some incidental service retail uses. As you likely recall, in 2023, a master plan amendment was approved on the property to allow an indoor and outdoor pickleball facility for pickle and social. And a freestanding restaurant. The applicant has decided not to move forward with that concept. Of course, the applicant is here this evening and can answer any questions regarding that previous proposal. As I mentioned, there's 3 variances. The maximum building setback, let me take you to the site plan so I can show you those. So there is in the North Point overlay, we have both minimum and maximum building setbacks. So we're trying to get the buildings closer to the road. In the site plan, this building is set back approximately 312 feet from Haynesbridge Road. In order to pull that building up to the road, you can see the odd shape of the property makes it very difficult to do that. And we have a max setback on Haynesbridge of 100 feet. On Rockmill Road, our max setback is 10 feet, and the applicant is proposing a row of parking between the building and Rockmill Road, which results in a 68-foot setback. And then, of course, I mentioned the parking stalls to the building footprint ratio. The parking stalls represent almost 45,000 square feet of impervious area, whereas the building footprint is only 35,500 square feet. As I mentioned, this building would be used by One Life Fitness. One Life Fitness is an athletic club providing world-class gym equipment, sports courts, specialized training programs, classes, and they also have amenities such as pools, saunas, whirlpools, hydro massage, on-site childcare, and locker rooms. Several locations in the area, including the location in Alpharetta at 12315 Crabapple Road. Other nearby locations are in Cumming, Woodstock, Dunwoody, Lawrenceville, Holly Springs, and there's a new location in Canton coming soon. The hours of operation, Monday through Sunday, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And the applicant anticipates approximately 75 to 100 employees. Going back to the site plan, as you can see, the 2-story, 55,000 square foot building is here. Of course, surface parking is surrounding. Outdoor amenity space is on the back side of the building. That's about 15,000 square feet. There are 4 pickleball courts shown on the northern half of the outdoor area and just an open area on the southern half. Access to the property is only from Rockmill Road, so there is no access from Haynesbridge Road. The Unified Development Code requires 220 parking spaces for the use, which includes the required 20% parking reduction in the North Point overlay. The applicant's site plan has 276 parking spaces, so they've got about 56 parking spaces more than what is required. So they do meet our minimum requirement. They're actually exceeding and asking for a variance to allow them to exceed. The overlay also requires open space, 5% amenity space, users of the site, and 10% civic space open to the public, for a total of 0.94 acres of open space for this 6.25 acre site. This site plan actually shows 1.15 acres of open space, so they do exceed the minimum requirement. The civic space is depicted here along Haynesbridge Road. It includes a tree save area, gathering space, as well as a pervious path in the Georgia 400 buffer along the on-ramp. And then, of course, there are amenity spaces met with this outdoor area, the pickleball and open space. Within the tree save area here at the corner, there are 7 specimen trees that are being saved, a variety of oaks in that area. It's a really great tree save. It's the same tree save that the Pickle and Social request depicted. There's an existing stormwater pond here. That stormwater pond serves road improvements in the area, so there is actually underground stormwater proposed within the parking lot to serve this development. Show you some renderings that the applicant provided. You can see there's a second-story open roof, but open air area here. And these are, I think, are just meant to depict in the structure in the evening time with some lighting. On the renderings, you see a mix of brick, masonry products, precast panels, glazing, wood slats, metal canopies, and sconces. Again, this property is in the North Point overlay. There are eco-district measures required in this area. For this development, a total of 7 are required, and the applicant is meeting the 7 required eco-district points by providing employee shower facilities, bicycle repair center, ride-share pickup and drop-off zones, van pool space, and additional landscape civic space. Then, of course, looking at the review criteria for the master plan amendment, conditional use, and variance, we believe that the proposal is consistent with the development of adjacent and nearby properties, which are similarly developed with commercial uses. Properties located in the North Point overlay, which seeks to create a live, work, play environment featuring a balanced mix of uses. And this proposal to allow an athletic facility is similar to the previous approval on the site and would not have significant impacts on public facilities and services. I believe the proposal is consistent with the vision for North Point by bringing services closer to where people live, work, and play. And as it relates to the variances, we do believe that there are some exceptional and peculiar conditions on the property, the unusual shape of the property, as well as 3 road frontages. The building's front entrance, let me go back to the site plan real quick. So the building's front entrance is on the long side of the building, so bringing that up to Haynesbridge, given the shape of the property, is very difficult. As I mentioned, there is a variance to allow the property to be overparked. Given our observed high-demand parking needs at other athletic facilities and health clubs, we are supportive of this variance in this case. And then the access, because there is another driveway on the property to the east, the applicant had to basically center the entrance off of Rock Mill between Haynesbridge and this driveway, which resulted in them having to have parking between the building. It just, you couldn't pull that up. The applicant provided a citizen participation report indicating that no public comments had been received. However, staff did receive 1 email from a property owner at the office condos on the east end of Rock Mill Road, over closer to North Point Parkway. And there was just some concerns about the traffic on Rock Mill Road. And then we did show this to the public at the June 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There were no public comments on the sign-in sheet. And Planning Commission considered the applicant's request at their July 9th meeting. There were no public comments, and the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval, subject to the 6 staff recommended conditions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Woodman on this item? Well, I saw Councilman Hypes first, so we'll start there.
Thank you, Mr. Woodman, for the presentation. What do we expect in terms of numbers of occupants? You know, there was something in a citizen's comment about how these facilities will have a certain number of customers, for lack of a better term. I don't think that's the right term, but what's the expectation? And what I'm driving toward is ultimately going to be traffic and traffic patterns. But for starters, is there an expectation?
I don't have details from the applicant on the number of people that they have in the facility at any one time. I've personally been into their facility in Crabapple, and it definitely has some peak times where there are quite a few folks in there. The applicant may have more information on that.
Well, I've asked it publicly. I'm sure it'll be addressed when they come up. The next question is, I'm pretty familiar with what the morning traffic is on Rock Mill heading toward Haynesbridge Road, and it can be somewhat heavy in the morning. Do we have any concerns, or has it been studied about cars trying to turn left into the facility when maybe the lanes are blocked or it's stacked, vice versa, when a car's trying to leave the facility, and if they can't make a right turn to get onto Rock Mill? Has any of that been looked at and addressed? Are we comfortable with that?
So the applicant's request did trigger a full traffic study as part of this public hearing, and that was included in the packet. So there's a trip generation report that was provided, and it did show AM and PM peak hour trips that exceeded more than 100 trips, which triggered the need for the traffic study. That traffic study was reviewed by our traffic engineer. As you know, we no longer have that position filled,
Right.
and he's not here to address that question. But with that said, the applicant and his professional engineer is here today and may be able to address that. I know that George did not bring up any concerns that required conditions to be added. We do have a condition that would require that the applicant implement any required road improvements resulting from the traffic study.
So the basis of my question, and you had started to address it earlier, I see the traffic count numbers in there, but what do those traffic count numbers mean given the curb cut and its proximity and distance from Haynesbridge Road with what we know about specifically AM traffic on Rock Mill? I tend to think that there's a lot of morning users of fitness facilities on their way to work. So if the curb cut is too close and people can't turn in left or right, whether it's 100 AM peak or if it's 20, I want to make sure that we've looked at and we're comfortable that we can get the traffic through there when this facility has that curb cut in that location with an expected number of users.
And I would have to defer to the applicant's engineer to address that question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Once again, I've asked it publicly. Hopefully they'll address that. Thank you.
Councilman Brady?
Thank you. Mr. Woodman, I just had one question. It was traffic kind of related, and I've seen this in Crabapple, kind of same thing. A lot of people get there at 6 a.m., kind of leave and go to work directly from the site, so somewhat gets people into that envelope a little earlier. But I've had a lot of questions, which we're kind of excited to see this type of use here, is really the left-hand turn from eastbound Haynesbridge. I don't think we're allowed to have that, but on record, can you kind of comment, would there ever be a left-hand turn there on Haynesbridge, or you go all the way down by Best Buy and come back around from eastbound traffic?
My understanding from speaking to George is that left turn from Haynesbridge into Rock Mill would not
It's
happen.
too close to 400,
Yeah.
some condition like that, it would never be used, but the question kept coming up. I appreciate you
That
addressing.
came up with the pickle and social requests as well, and it was always it would not happen. That would not be allowed.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman? Councilman Driscoll?
I've just got one question, and it may be on the north side of this property, but I know and I don't see it on this site plan, there's a graveyard.
There is a cemetery on the adjacent property to the east. This is the Fulton County Schools Maintenance Facility. And I believe out in front of their facility, there is
That's
a
what I was trying to look
cemetery
to see.
there.
Okay, so it's not on this piece.
It is not on this property.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman? Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time?
City Council. My name is Neil Freeman. I reside at 959 Middle Fork Trail, Swanee, Georgia 30024. I am joined by Barry Dunlop, Paradigm Engineer. He's a project engineer for this property. I'm the managing member of Pickle and Social Alpharetta LLC, which is the owner of this property. We accept the conditions as set forth by the city staff and affirmed by the Planning Commission. Do want to commend again, as always, the great job that your staff have done projects across the country, and your staff is as thorough and professional as there is in the country. Just to address the three variances, and then I'll come back to the traffic. On the first variance, again, I just kind of reiterate a little bit what Woodman talked about. One of the things, having that one lane of parking separation, it gives the fire circulation for a building of this size. That was another reason for that. The second one, as you looked at the property, the reason we had to, the way we had the site orientation required us to have an increased distance from Haynes Bridge, just the only way it could lay in there. And then the last one, on this impervious area surface parking stalls to exceed the impervious area of the building, if you include the outdoor amenity, which is impervious, if you include that, then we would be okay, wouldn't need the variance. But so instead of getting into whatever, we just applied for the variance. So we're fine with applying for the variance. That's just explaining how that one. We did do a initial trip preparation, and that it caused us to do a full bore traffic study, which we did. We used, and I'm going to mess up his name, Mark Akampur, who's done quite a bit locally and done some stuff for us. And I always mess up his name, and I apologize, Mark. But the results of that study, Mr. Hikes, was that indeed there was a need for additional improvement to the Rock Mill. In addition, adding if I remember right, it was a westbound on Rock Mill, adding an extra lane to help free up some of that stacking there. So that was the one thing. The other thing that they threw out, but then it was like it would be something that we could consider, but then Mr. Dole said that the city had looked at it and they certainly don't want to part of it. But that was adding another lane, another turn, I guess you'd call it a turn lane onto Georgia 400 North on Haynes Bridge. But the segment was so small, and my understanding was that would exasperate, and that was, so it was one of those that was just thrown out there as something to study and discuss. The question on the number of customers, I don't have that answer. And so I don't know the number of customers other than, I wish I had it, but I don't. So they want to be as busy as they are in the other 4 or 5 locations, but I don't have that number, and I should have that, but I don't. There's no, the left-hand turn there, that was not certainly we didn't explore that originally, and certainly not now as well. I think that was I'll just leave the rest for open. Any other questions?
Do we have any?
Well, maybe just the reason for the pivot Of course, we're going to do a pickle and social. And then just the market, just the proliferation of the supply of pickleball courts just outstripped the demand, particularly in this specific area. And again, I'm excited for the cooler, but when that did, it just kind of upset the market, and it just thought the best thing for us was to pivot and go to a different use. And that's why, again, we thought, given with all the activity in the area, that a health club would be a nice fit. It's as closest to the pickles, and it actually still has 4 courts, so it was about as close as we could come to a similar pivot. So the rest I'll leave for questions.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? Councilman Hydes.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. On the issue of stacking, which is really where I was going with the proximity of the curb cut, does your traffic study indicate for traffic turning off of Haynes Bridge onto Rock Mill, how many cars could get in there? And I don't know if it's a concern or not, but I'd like to ask these before we build something.
Yeah, no,
So
totally understand.
If you're stopped from turning left into the facility because of morning traffic getting to Haynes Bridge, how many cars could stack up on Rock Mill before somebody gets some relief to cut through to get in there? Do you understand what I'm asking about here?
Yeah, I know, yeah. And what is interesting, because we did look at, from a site geometry of moving that curb cut closer, and that certainly caused an issue there. So then, this was the most centralized location. It's where the curb cut is now, and it fits very nicely between Haynes Bridge and the Fulton County Maintenance Building. But the stacking, you know, yeah, but
You're going to have the microphone.
yeah. So this is,
So stacking could happen inbound and it can happen
Understood.
outbound. If it stacks into your parking lot, you all going to have to figure that part out, because if people can't get out to a right turn. But for people trying to get in to make a left turn, I don't know if that's 2 cars, 7 cars, 18 cars, I don't know. But I don't want cars backed up onto Haynes Bridge if there isn't enough room.
oh, certainly. Yeah, I'm understood.
Yes, my name is Barry Dunlop. I'm with Paradigm Engineering. My office is at 903 Bombay Lane, Roswell, Georgia, 30076. And on the site plan, the striping that you see right here is some of the existing striping that's out there. And my intent during the land disturbance permit process is to work with George Doyle, the Alpharetta Transportation reviewer and engineer. And we've talked about this some briefly, but we're going to look at pulling this hazard striping back towards Haynes Bridge so that we can increase the amount of stacking cars along this left turn lane before the actual turn into the site. And I did some quick looking at this, and I get about 10 to 11 cars to stack in this area if we pull that taper back towards Haynes Bridge. We feel as if that's quite an adequate number for the trips that we are going to see on the morning peaks and the PM peaks. So we feel pretty comfortable about that. If George feels like there's something else that we needed, if we're concerned about the number of cars that might stack up on Rock Mill heading towards Haynes Bridge, we can always talk about putting in one of those boxes right there at the driveway that says, "Don't block the box," just so that people could turn in and out of that driveway without being hindered by people waiting to get to Haynes Bridge. So those are some things that George and I will end up discussing during the LDP process.
Okay, so, and you have directly addressed my question. What I want to know is that people are thinking about it, people are planning for it, and that, you know, if we need to move that center dedicated left turn lane back for a few vehicles, and it doesn't compromise traffic in any other sense, that we work together just to make sure traffic keeps flowing and nobody's backed up onto Haynesbridge.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. Ms. Zora Husking.
We have no public comment cards.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak in favor of this item, now's your opportunity. Don't see anyone come forward in favor. Do we have anyone in opposition? I do not see anyone coming forward to speak in opposition, so I don't think there's any need for a rebuttal at this point, since there was no opposition. We have a motion from council.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I would have motion this evening to approve MP-26-09/CU-26-08/V-26-13 One Life Fitness Delta Credit Union MP as presented this evening.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Brady. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. I want to thank you guys for working on this. We've seen everything from residential to multifamily to nurseries, pickle and social. I was really excited about that, but I understand where that wound up, and we kind of saw that coming there before he broke ground. I think he saved himself. This is, we talk about vision in that area, vision in the city. This piece has been here for a while for a reason. And we weren't hasty. We didn't approve things that we knew probably really weren't going to work there. But this fits the model. And I think what you'll see when you talk about several hundred people a day using this facility, that will carry over to the rest of that area. You'll see people using restaurants again. You will see people going to Best Buy. Hell, I was there twice this weekend. So this is a great use for this piece of property in my mind, and that's why I completely support this evening.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Congratulations. The next item up will be V-26-11, Brookside Concourse Landscape Strip Variance. Mr. Woodman, you're a busy man this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item is a request for a variance to allow 2 office parcels to be subdivided. The variance is requested to Unified Development Code subsection 3.2.8D4, and that would be to eliminate the 5-foot landscape strip that is required along property lines, not adjoining a street. Property would require 5 landscape strips along each side of the new property line. This is the location map. This is 4300, 4325, 4400, and 4425 Alexander Drive, and this is located within the Brookside Master Plan. Property is zoned O&I, Office Institutional. And let me take you to the site plan. So there's 2 parcels here and here. Disregard the yellow property line here right now that does not exist today. So this is just all one parcel north and south of Alexander Drive, and this is just to the west of Brookside Parkway is here. So the property north of Alexander Drive, this property here, is 7.2 acres. The property south is 7.98 acres, and both properties are developed with 2 office buildings and then parking surrounding. So the applicant submitted this subdivision plat, and this plat depicts new parcel lines being added to the properties in order to subdivide them. The resulting properties would be 2 properties north of Alexander and 2 properties south of Alexander, each with an office building and surrounding parking. When you subdivide and you add a new property line, our code does require 5-foot landscape strips along these new property lines. If those were to be added on each side of the property line, it would be a significant impact to the existing parking lot. And this is likely just being done so that the properties could be potentially sold in the future. So looking at those review criteria for the variance, we believe it's the application of the ordinance that would create an unnecessary hardship here. As I just mentioned, adding the property lines would require the landscape strips, 5 feet on each side, a total of 10 feet within that existing parking lot, and that would be a significant impact to that property. The applicant provided a citizen participation report indicating that they received no public comments. And the item was shown to the public at the June 10th Community Zoning Information Meeting, and there are no public comments at that meeting. With that, staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request to eliminate the 5-foot landscape strip required along the new property lines, and that is subject to 2 conditions. Condition 1 would limit it to this subdivision plan and tie it to this plan. And then condition 2 would eliminate the 5-foot landscape strips along those new property lines. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Mayor Pro Tem?
A lot of talk about parking today. I'm just assuming and going to ask the question that once we put these boundaries up, do each of these parcels maintain enough parking, or does the parking not go with the property?
So the parking will be on individual properties now. They would meet their parking needs on the individual properties. I don't know, the applicant is here. I don't know if they intend to provide reciprocal shared parking agreements between the 2 properties. The applicant may have more information on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Woodman? Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hi, my name is Will Spittle. I'm with Kimley Horn Associates. Address is 1200 Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm here on behalf of my client, Entrada Partners, who owns this property currently. I guess to answer the first question regarding the parking, as of now, there's no plans for a shared parking agreement. However, there will, excuse me, there will be an agreement in place for shared access to allow for circulation to continue as it currently does. But for some added context too, Michael did allude to this, but this would give my client a little bit more flexibility when marketing this property to either lease or sell. So that way, a potential buyer would not have to buy 2 buildings. It would give them the ability to purchase 1. But they're working on filling these buildings out currently.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Councilwoman Reeves?
So let's just say it were to get sold, and I was wondering if the application of 1 5-foot landscape strip between the 2 of them would severely impact it. Because I was thinking, ultimately you're going to have, it would potentially be 2 owners.
Yes, that's a good point. I think in the future, if it were to get sold and developed, I think that would be a good application to it. But currently, as they're trying to fill out their main focus is not to sell it, but to fill it, and it's more of an alternative if that becomes the better option for them. But currently, if we were to do a 5-foot landscape strip on either side or both, honestly, it would have kind of major impacts to the circulation of these parking lots for both normal use as well as for the fire route as well. And then in addition to that, it would require not an insignificant amount of land disturbance activity in order to provide proper turnarounds because it would create many dead ends in the parking lot. Not sure if I answered your question, but okay.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Orhusky.
We have no public comment cards.
However, if anyone wants to speak in favor of this item, now is your opportunity. I do not see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment in favor. Do we have anyone that would like to speak in opposition? I do not see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. No need for a rebuttal if there are no objections. Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I offer a motion this evening to approve V-26-11 Brookside Concourse Landscape Strip variance as presented this evening by Mr. Woodman.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel and a second by Councilman Brady. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote yes. And it is unanimous. Congratulations. So the next item will be the ordinance, fire prevention and protection text amendments. Chief, you're up. Oh, before you are, Ms. Eswine must read the ordinance for us.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia to amend Chapter 20 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta, referred to as the Fire Prevention and Protection Ordinance, to provide for effective dates and further purposes.
Thank you, Ms. Eswine. The floor is yours, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time. If you'll recall, a couple weeks ago, I was here in a work session presenting this at greater length. So tonight I was just going to present a brief summary. The original text that you had was a red line version, so there have been minor changes in the verbiage, just cleaning some things up. But in concept, it's the same as the original presentation. Again, just as a refresher, why are we bringing this to you in general? And it's because the current Chapter 20 has very outdated language, largely. It's not transparent for developers or people who want to come in and need to apply the code. It's not clear in terms of our role and our processes, being the fire department. And perhaps most importantly, there are multiple places where we don't adhere to the current state fire codes. So our proposed updates are attempting to remedy all of those situations. While we have gone through and addressed and in large part changed almost all of the verbiage, some of the more pertinent changes are to the emergency access, which is where you have a gate or other such barrier across a fire road. There we are requiring, currently there is a requirement for a siren-operated system. We're changing the code to require the click-to-enter system, which is activated off of our portable emergency radios. Again, it's more secure, it functions better for us, helps to keep unwanted people from accessing the system. Another change that we've made or that we are requesting, suggesting, is to the emergency responder radio coverage, or the ERRC, also known as IFC 510 if you're in the building area. What we're requiring there is the infrastructure for potential future build-outs in case at the end of a build it's found that the radio tests, the clarity, the quality tests that are required are not passed, so that the developer doesn't have to go back and undertake expensive retrofits. And then finally, one of the more pertinent updates is the event related to event safety and large gatherings. We've specified, more clarified, made it more transparent what the notification requirements are when a party has to notify us of their event, what the criteria is that we evaluate if we need to intervene, and if we do need to intervene, what the responsibilities of our personnel and their personnel are. Of note, as we mentioned last time, this does not inherently change our current practice. It brings our code up to our current practice. Just in a high level, there is virtually no, or most residents, I should say, will see no impact of this in terms of financial impact. The potential place would be that click-to-enter system, where there would be that additional cost. A click-to-enter system on average, is going to run somewhere between $800 and $1,500 above the siren-operated system, but that's a one-time just on the initial installation. So some residents or homeowners association might see some financial impact based on that one thing. Outside of that, there should be virtually no impact to the residents. On the development side, though, there is that ERRC pathway infrastructure that I spoke about, so there is a slight cost. But again, that would be a requirement that they do through the building phase. So the walls are already open. It's just a matter of putting some additional conduit in the same pathways that they already are putting other conduit. And again, the intention there is to essentially future-proof the build. So if we get to the end of the build and the tests pass, or excuse me, fail, they don't have to undergo costly remedies at that point. Or if they have a neighbor come and build and somehow changes the dynamics for our radio systems inside, the pathways are already there, and it's a matter of just pulling some cable and adding some components. So again, these updates are intended to bring our code up to standard with the state minimums to improve transparency and clarity, and would be thrilled to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have any questions? Councilwoman Reeves.
For the special permits, we have a lot of places that are gathering spots now. And if somebody has a planned event that spills out onto our streets and they don't get a permit, what are the consequences?
I'll have to defer to our fire marshal.
Sure. Good evening, council. Thank you for your question. So the ordinance, I'm going to pull the definition specifically, if you bear with me. It specifically defines two types of locations, one being a permanent venue. So examples of these are going to be theaters, arenas, stadiums. It's places that are built specifically for that type of occupancy. The second one is going to be special use locations. So these are going to be your open spaces like parks or public areas. Generally, population spilling outside of what would be a permanent venue is what you're referring to, into a open space or a special use location. That would basically be addressed public safety wise by like we'd have to determine what you mean by spilling over. So is it just crowd that's naturally kind of starting to assemble on the public green? That may be, if they're attending a restaurant, or is it hey, my permanent venue, we're going to have some kind of event here, but I want to set up tents, I want to set up a whole bunch of stuff outside to continue the entertainment. Well, in that case, they would fall underneath that special use location where they would have to have approval from the fire department and public safety. Otherwise, if it were to amount to that situation, then we would handle it with it on the spot in terms of either moving people on to open up back up roads, et cetera, or just treating it as any other gathering inside the public space.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Do we have any other questions? Well done, gentlemen. Do we have any public comments in favor of this item?
We have no public comment cards.
Okay, so I assume that means we have no one in favor nor in opposition. I don't see anyone coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Making a motion that council adopt the amendments to the ordinance as previously referenced by City Attorney S. Swine to Chapter 20, Fire Protection and Prevention, to improve clarity, transparency, and administrative consistency within an existing state regulatory framework.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Hypes, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Councilman Hypes.
Thank you, Mayor. I try not to give out thank yous too gratuitously, but I want to give it out here. Fire Department took this up, so far as I know, under their own initiative. Extremely tedious work going through our fire code And a lot of hours were put into this, and Chief Denkinshire and Fire Marshal Talbot deserve a lot of credit for doing this. And it's more than just updating and modernizing our fire code. It's also the fire marshal's office and the fire code is a big part of people who want to do business and invest in our city to get something built and to make it consistent with state law, provide more clarity and predictability so that our laws are matched up with the state law. It's going to mean a lot to the people who want to do business in our city. And so I applaud you for that. If somebody up here asked them to do that, I applaud you. I didn't ask them to do it. They did it on their own, and I think that's why we're such a great city. We just have, tremendous people who take initiative, and I want to thank you for that.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. So the next item up will be new business, and that's request for proposal 26-116, Woodbridge Road Design, Morris Road to east of North Point Parkway. Director Sisevich.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you know, is the our last phase of Woodbridge Road. GDOT's still going to go from West Side to Morris Road. We're going to go from Morris Road to about the high school entrance, just shy of the high school entrance. What also included in this RFP was the trade winds projects that were associated with T-Splosh 2, which we're going to, trade winds is the new overpass of Georgia 400, is the new ingress egress to the express lanes. So we're going to design a signal at trade winds at North Point Parkway, as well as add dual left turn lanes from southbound West Side onto Woodbridge Road. That's all part of this RFP design package. Also included is a Douglas Road at Clubhouse Drive traffic signal. We received proposals from 5 firms. Low Engineers was the highest rated firm, as well as the lowest cost firm at $281,000. Staff met with them earlier this month and recommends award.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Sisevich? Must have done a great job. Nobody had any questions. Pete? Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak in favor or opposition, now's your opportunity. I don't see anyone coming forward, so I'll call for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion we award RFP 26-116 for the design of Woodbridge Road from Morris Road to east of North Point Parkway and multiple intersection upgrades, such as adding traffic signals at the intersections of Douglas Road and Clubhouse Drive, and North Point Parkway at Trade Winds Parkway to Low Engineers consulting firm with a contract term of 17 months. Notice to proceed and an amount not to exceed $281,000, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Reeves, a second by Councilman Brady. Any discussion? Councilwoman Reeves.
I know that all this stuff is going to take a long time. I talked to Pete about a couple of the items. They are going to be very impactful as we move forward. I'm just glad to see us take this next step in this project. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. There's no other discussion. All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thanks, Pete. Next item is request for qualifications, 26-1001, Public Bike Share Program, Equipment Operations and Services for the City of Alpharetta. Mr. Rogers, time for some fun.
Let's do. We are here tonight to try to bring some fun, some of the fun that was been missing from Alpharetta for a little while. Officially, we were asking for approval of a contract with Tandem Mobility LLC for a public bike share program here in Alpharetta. In addition to that, we're asking for consideration of memorandums of understanding with True North 400, with Avalon, and with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. A little history lesson is back in 2016, the city of Alpharetta established a bike share program with a company called Zaxter. That program grew to where we had 5 bike share locations between the city of Roswell and Alpharetta. And in 2020, Zaxter went out of business. So we've been without a bike share program since 2020. Staff put together an RFQ asking for a request for qualifications from bike share programs that wanted to offer a bike share program here in Alpharetta. We received 2 entries, one from Tandem Mobility and the other from Drop Mobility. Tandem Mobility scored the highest through a staff evaluation process, and that's why we're bringing it forward tonight. The bike share program, if approved, will have 5 bike share locations in the city of Alpharetta. One of those will be at Town Green, and that one will be sponsored by the Alpharetta Convention and Visitors Bureau. The second one would be at Avalon, and that would be sponsored by Avalon. The third one would be at the west side along the Alpha Loop, where the loop goes under West Side, and that one would be sponsored by True North 400. There'd be one at the North Point Park, and that would be sponsored by True North 400. And then there'd be one at Rock Mill, which would be sponsored jointly by the city of Alpharetta and the North Side Hospital through a grant that they give us. And the bike share is one of the things that we can do with that money from North Side. So the first hour would be free for anybody to use, and then the second hour would cost every 30 minutes after that would cost $2.50. Tandem Bicycle, they take care of all of the bicycles. They have to repair the bicycles, keep them in good running order. They have to do all of the software and the technology behind renting the bike. They collect the money after the first 3 hours, but the city of Alpharetta receives that money from Tandem. Each of the locations is a $12,000 a year commitment from each of these locations, and that money is being paid by a third party in our group. So this is a great public-private partnership that we have with the city and our joint usage. That's the water tower view of the bike share program that we're bringing forward tonight. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about this exciting and fun program.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Great job, Morgan. Appreciate it. I was here when we approved it in 16, and I was here when it died in 2020. And then with COVID coming out and everybody scrambling, so we're back. Just a point, you mentioned in here, based on the success of these 5 locations, we can look to expand this to other locations in the city. I'd like to give some serious consideration to the northeast side, whether it's Union Hill Park or Marconi, to get access to that corridor because of the number of residents that actually live up there. I just want to put that on.
Well, the beauty of this program is it takes 5 stations to get us started. Tandem needs at least 5 locations for them to start the program. But once they start it, we can add programs, additional stations, 5 at a time, anytime that somebody comes up and says, we want to be part of this bike share program. So we're hoping that there's businesses and locations throughout the city and maybe even next to the city that will want to become part of this program, and we can add those additional partners on very easily.
Now, you said 5 at a time. Does that mean we couldn't add 1 or 2?
No, 5 bikes at a time. So,
oh, okay.
So we have 5 now. That's the minimum we had to have. So if a month from now somebody wants to put a bike share location at their location, we can add that location with 5 bikes at any time.
Got it.
As we move forward. So we think there's a really good opportunity here to have some additional partnerships and to grow this program, so we really can keep Alpharetta moving on the 2 wheels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Reeves?
And I'm assuming all the bikes have to be returned to the location they were rented from?
No, they have to be returned to a Tandem Mobility locations. So you can rent one at Town Green and leave it at Rock Mill and then Uber home if you want to. So you just have to leave it at one of their locations because their software will pick up that it's docked and locked, and it'll take it off your credit card. So that would be the beauty of additional spaces, is that it just gives people more opportunities to do things.
And I would echo, I think that somewhere, what Mayor Pro Tem said, somewhere up there would be, off Windward would be a really great location, like, you know, whether that's, I think Marconi's really nicely situated, but maybe we can all put our heads together, work on that.
Any other questions from council? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if anyone wants to speak on the rideshare program, I do not see anyone coming forward, so we will close public comment. Do I have a motion from City Council?
Yes, Mayor, and this might be a bit lengthy of a motion. Make a motion that council award RFQ 26-1001 for public bike share program services to Tandem Mobility LLC with a contract term of 5 years in an amount not to exceed $60,000 annually, of which $48,000 annually would come from partner sponsorships and $12,000 annually from the city, and further, that council approve memorandums of understanding with the Alpharetta Convention and Visitors Bureau, True North 400, and PR Avalon Phase 1 Owner LLC for sponsorship of the public bike share program, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Hypes, second by Councilwoman Reeves. Any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. And it is unanimous. So the next item up will be the ordinance, alcoholic beverages text amendments. Ms. Eswine, would you mind reading the ordinance title aloud?
An ordinance by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Chapter 4 of the Code of the City of Alpharetta, referred to as the Alcohol Ordinance, to provide for effective dates and for other purposes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Orhusky, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is the second reading for the ordinance to adopt changes to Section 57 of the Alcohol Beverage Ordinance. This would update the publicly owned facilities section of the ordinance to include the Arts Center. We're bringing this ahead of some of the other changes that we're working on because there are some currently scheduled and anticipated to be scheduled events where your alcohol service would be a benefit. The Arts Center had been previously allowed to serve alcohol, but was not included specifically in our publicly owned facilities section as an allowed event center for alcohol consumption and service. So this is just us cleaning up a little bit and adding that so that they can continue to serve alcohol at their events. If you have any questions, the only change we have made was to correct some of the section numbers, but that is it. No other changes have been made since the first reading.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Orhusky? All right, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak forward on this item, now's your chance. Don't see any public coming forward, so we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd offer a motion to approve the second reading for the ordinance alcohol beverage text amendment, Chapter 4, titled Alcoholic Beverages of the Code of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, is presented this evening.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, a second by Councilman Brady. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote yes. And it passes unanimously. So we'll move right along. The resolution authorization to intervene and to petition for temporary collection of taxes. Ms. Eswine.
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, authorizing the city to intervene in Fulton County's petition for temporary tax collection relief, to petition the Superior Court of Fulton County for an order authorizing the immediate and temporary collection of municipal ad valorem taxes, authorizing the city attorney to take all necessary legal actions, and for other purposes. So I believe you are all aware that just due to the number of packages that the Fulton County Board of Assessors had to process this year, the Fulton County Tax Digest is delayed, and that ultimately ends up affecting the city's ability to collect taxes. So Fulton County actually filed their petition in the Superior Court on Friday. We've already gotten the real nice eye with a schedule because this is kind of one of those things that you want to move along quickly. Scheduling a hearing for this for August 4th, and to protect the city's interests and to ensure that any order that the court will enter into and to prevent any challenges to the city's ability to collect taxes, we think that the most prudent option is for the city to intervene. The court's order actually contemplates that anybody can intervene that needs to, and so that is my office's recommendation, and that's what the resolution would authorize us to do. We would be, in the resolution, it makes findings as to why the temporary collection of taxes is necessary for the city. I think that the resolution really speaks for itself on that point, and Tom can otherwise enlighten us on why we need our taxes collected. But it otherwise just authorizes my office to prepare a pretty simple petition to intervene and get supporting affidavits from the mayor, potentially Chris, and Tom in support of that.
Do we have any questions about this item? Councilman Brady.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a question, just mechanical kind of pieces there, and I'll frame it in the form of a question. So we will send out, based upon last year's taxes, out to the residents, property owners in Alpharetta. Then-
For the values.
Correct.
Yes.
And if they change, they'll go back out. An additional amount will be billed at a later date, let's just say February 1st, and those things will be collected at that point. That's the kind of mechanical procedure we're looking at.
Right, and I'll work with Tom to make sure that what we put in the petition is something he's definitely comfortable with. Ultimately, the rate that the court ends up adopting is in the broad discretion of the court, and we'll take what they give us, right? But yes, and Tom and I have already started those discussions.
Any other questions? Councilman Hypes.
So if potentially we're going to have two notices go out, an initial and potentially a supplemental?
Potentially, yes.
I'm sure the city, I hope that the city will do its best to publicize that so that our residents are forewarned and not caught off guard. And, maybe if somebody in the press picks that up as well, they'll have an opportunity to amplify that.
Certainly. Within the city, those discussions have already begun.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Reeves.
And in the rare occasion where somebody's taxes might actually, your appraisal would go down from 25 to 26, then it would be worked out for a refund.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of thing that Tom and I have already been discussing to try and avoid that situation coming up. This has been done before in the city. There are ways to approach this to hopefully prevent that from happening, but we would absolutely not overtax anyone in the city.
We've seen this movie before here in Fulton.
Any other questions from council? Ms. Orhusky, do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir, we do not.
Do we have a motion then?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution authorization to intervene and to petition for temporary collection of taxes as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Brady, a second by Councilwoman Reeves. Any discussion? Well, I'm on my soapbox tonight. I am so sick of the Fulton County tax assessor screwing up the mainstream revenue stream for every city in Fulton County. And the fact it is, I mean, it's ridiculous. And so, one, I want to say, first, if there's state legislators out there, we need to fix this. It's ridiculous. It's absurd to have to rely on an incompetent official every year. They never get it done on time. They never get it right. I mean, it's going to be a mess. I'm just thinking of the poor people who have escrows. So, you know, if they're in an escrow on their mortgage, they're just going to cut a check for whatever the initial one is. How are they going to go back and get that money? It's just really pathetic that we have such a screwed up government, and it's all required by the state to force us to rely on an incompetent tax assessor. And it's absurd that we continue to do that. And if there's a governor candidate out there that's listening, or, you know, a lieutenant governor candidate that wants a platform, hit me up. So that's it. I just needed to vent because it's happened every year. It not once do we ever get it on time. And if we even get close to it being on time, it's not right to begin with. So we need to fix it, but it's out of our control. So we need to find people that'll fix it for us. That being said, all those that are in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So next item will be the work session, alcohol ordinance text amendments. Mr. Schroeder, you have the floor.
Good evening. And tonight, we're going to share the floor amongst the clerk's office, code enforcement, and the city attorney, because this is a pretty big undertaking. There's lots of hours of discussions and changes and things that have gone into this. There's a lot of changes that you saw, I'm sure, in your packets that are some wording changes. There's a whole lot of that in there that city attorney's office and Mr. Shapiro and I found that just didn't line up with state law, didn't line up with how we were operating and collecting our excise taxes, or on what day, and this and that. So we've cleaned all that up as well in here. It's shown in these documents, but we're prepared to answer the questions about them, but not necessarily going to focus on those. Some of the things we're going to focus on are some of the bigger changes. We added some new definitions and tweaked a couple other definitions. We added a definition for an indoor recreational establishment. We put definitions in for moral turpitude. That was one that was a disqualifier for a license, but it was not defined in our ordinance, so we got that defined. We've got public entertainment facility, and we put a definition in for registered agent. So we'll go through those in just a minute. One of the other changes we've added is a few years back, we took the maps, most of them out of the UDC or out of the city code because they referenced odd things that weren't really true maps. So we've brought back one into the alcohol ordinance that is the defined downtown district. There's a lot of things in the alcohol ordinance that are defined by that district. Open carry is one of them. There's some other distance requirements and things. So you see two different images on this map. The red hashed lines are the district by the way the GIS map reads it out. Those are the defined lines. The black hashed lines are the parcels that are directly abutting that line. And the city attorney's office has found that those parcels need to be included in anything that would be the downtown district. So she can maybe explain that a little bit better. But that's why you see two different things. This map will be in the ordinance, so it'll be easily or easily seen by the folks wanting to do something in downtown, so. Some other changes in the licensing qualifications line, we've always had a requirement for a registered agent. Recently, we've had some problems finding registered agents because they were required to live in Fulton County. Not many folks followed the requirements in updating registered agents, addresses, things like that. So we've had some fairly significant issues. So I asked the city's attorney's office if we could narrow that down and make so that my staff wouldn't have to spend potentially so much time searching Fulton County for a registered agent who may or might not even live there anymore. But it would only be the city. So we're asking for a requirement to narrow the registered agent that they actually be a resident of the city of Alpharetta. Registered agents, you can see in the definition, are only for service of documents. They aren't held responsible for anything other than just the service of the document and required to get that to the person that they're serving as agent for. Some other changes, background checks. We sort of touched on it a while back, but background checks we felt were a little bit lacking. We were only getting those on a new application. And once that application went through, unless a owner changed or they added a partner or something like that, we wouldn't get any more background checks or anything on that. And in some cases, they could add a partner that wouldn't require a background check. So we're asking to amend that and require a background check for everyone that's required by the ordinance every other year. So we'll do that on the new year. So if enacted, we'll start with the 28 renewals, yeah. So when those come available next fall, we'll start those background checks. Expanded definition of convictions. Currently, we can only look at convictions in the city of Alpharetta for alcohol ordinance issues when we're doing a background check. That's expanded to the state of Georgia. So we can, and that might be a Molly question, I don't know that we can use that as a revocation or a suspension aspect, but it will be as reviewed as part of the new application, qualifications for new. We also cleaned up, there's, as all of you know that are involved in businesses, there are so many types of partnerships, corporations, different things, and there's very specific things that they can do and ways that they can change their license or their organization without having to do other background checks, losing their current license and applying for a new. So we got again, the city's attorney's office to get that research done for us, and we meet same things the state requirements are on those now. Compliance and fees. Right now, as most of you know, or all of you know, that we're going through a big fee issue with the business licenses. We started about 3.5 weeks ago with 900 businesses that hadn't renewed for 2026 yet. My staff's got that narrowed down pretty well, but one thing that we want to incorporate is going forward, and we'll begin that this year if it's so passed, that all relative taxes and fees will need to be paid before the alcohol license is issued. So business license, any excise taxes, any property taxes, any of that the city collects and are required, we'll look at those as part of the alcohol license and make sure that those are paid, which would be at the end of the year. So as you know, the business license is one that can take over into April, I believe it is, before other things happen with fines and such like that. So that wouldn't be the case if you have an alcohol license. Everything would have to be paid up at the end of the year, which is when all the licenses expire or are due anyway, so. Excise taxes. Excise taxes on, there's different types, different things. Some pay distributors, some distributors pay the excise taxes, other local establishments pay the excise taxes. We weren't following state ordinance or state code, and we didn't really realize it in the day of the month that we had been requiring some of these excise taxes to be paid. So what you see here is a basically 10-day grace period, so that we didn't change when folks needed to pay us because they knew or supposedly knew when they needed to pay us excise taxes. So if they were due on the 10th by the state, we gave them a 10-day grace period to the 20th, which is where we were operating anyway. Other excise taxes were due on the 20th by the state, so we left that at the 20th. So just lining everything up to be the same. We're also want to include that all establishments must report their sales, even if it's zero. So we want to get those reports from everybody. And we did clarify that excise taxes do apply to private clubs. Distance requirements. Distance requirements, we felt like, I think it was last month, we had a distance requirement variance here for the store out in front here. So this one's up for discussion. We felt like it wanted to be removed, the distance requirements for package sales in the downtown that did not include liquor. So this is package sales for beer and wine only, and not for people that have on-premise consumption licenses. So like the little store that we had, if we get another little gift shop, something like that, we could allow them. We reduced the distance requirements to 30 feet from any of the surrounding issues, churches, residences, things like that. The state requires that you have a distance. If you don't have the distance issue or distance in your code, then you have to go with the state code, which is much larger. So we would eliminate a lot more and not have the ability for a variance. The renewal process. We revamped completely the renewal process. Some of it I've already touched on. We've got background checks every 2 years. We have already added in an acknowledgement of the alcohol code in the license application, clarified that renewals are due December 31st, but there is a late penalty if you file after November 15th. Transfer a license.
Mr. Mayor, let me interrupt. How many more of these slides do you have, Brett?
Two, I think.
We need to engage in a dialogue with the council on some of these topics as opposed to just talking at them before we get too much further along. I'd like to see that there's some discussion if we could get some.
I have 2 more.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and get through those, but then let's
Okay.
let's start a dialogue. Thank you.
Transfer license, I pretty well went over that. That's the whole corporate thing and that. Locations where prohibited, 447, we're updating the definition of a kitchen. That came up in a prior case that City Council saw, so we're updating that. Hours of sales, downtown district, we're proposing that the hours of sales go from 2 to 1 a.m. Hotels and motels, just clarifying that. We've also had some requests for in-room service, in-room alcohol service, and we also don't have a good way of establishing the service at the gift shop inside the lobby or something like that. So we've established that. And then the indoor recreational facilities, we are proposing removing the 50-50 alcohol sales for them because most of their things are not alcohol-based. Most of theirs are other-based, and giving them a combination of ticket sales and food sales in a gross manner to relate over to 70%, and then they wouldn't have to go to 50/50. And then if there's time, the really big side of this, the city attorney's office will discuss procedures that we've developed for revocation and suspensions and the processes to get to those, which is a pretty lengthy little bit. But we felt like that came out of one of our other hearings here with another restaurant. So we've worked on those and got that in. So we're ready to talk through those.
Did you want to start with?
Yeah, let me see if I can set the stage here real quick so so this can make some sense. What we tried to do here with this presentation was to lay out the things that are relatively, I think, easy at the beginning of the presentation and kind of go through those to get as much out of the way as we could and say, this is easy, so let's make sure that we're thinking what the city council's thinking with these. And then we get to these 4 topics that are a little bit meatier. And a couple of them have got some real meat on the bone. So what I'd like to recommend to you all tonight, and this is what I've sort of prepped our staff for, if you all are good with it, is that we would work through these easy to get through items and maybe pick off one of the meatier items and talk through it, let the city attorney lead that discussion. And that's probably about all that I think any of us are going to want to focus in on this particular code tonight. And this would be absolutely perfect to come back in a couple of consecutive work sessions so we don't just sit here and glaze over on the alcohol code, because this has been a significant amount of work. Trying to work it in one work session is probably not going to work. So
yep.
I'll throw that out there to say that would be really success for us tonight and really helpful if we could get that direction. If we could go back through these that Brett's presented and make sure that what he's presented, there's not any contrary positions to, and then really take off one of those meatier ones, and we'll let the city attorney work through that. And if you all are good with that, we'll take that away for tonight, and then we'll bring it back when we need to talk some more.
So how do we proceed?
So I guess so let's just start here with these with the first slide. Let's go to the next one, Brett, because I'm not sure that new definitions. Really, the biggest one I think in all of what was presented, and this is just to affirm because it's the most departure from where we have it with respect to the restaurants, is the departure from 2 o'clock service to 1 o'clock. So I would like to throw that out there and make sure that I'm starting to see heads go all the same direction. And okay, so that was one. You're the ones that have written it, and that's a very different thing, so I want to make sure we answer this correctly.
Yeah, it was service was what it was meant for. Hours could operate. Yes, sir.
Definitely, that's what it's for.
Chris, if I may I add
please.
One other item? I think another one of the biggest changes in this section that we would kind of like some input on as well, to make sure that the council would be amenable to requiring all of our licensee applicants or those who would require a background check to be background checked every other year as part of the renewal process. But if there is any comment from council, we'd love to hear about that here.
Does anyone on council have an objection or an opinion? Councilman Brady?
Just curious, and this is more of a process than anything else. What would be an item in the background that will pop up that you'd immediately decline the license?
So that kind of goes into this definition of moral turpitude that we've since corrected. So usually any felonious crimes, those that are involving any kind of deceit or untruthfulness. We've also included acts involving drugs or alcohol. No traffic offenses unless it was related to drugs or alcohol. So those would be the types of offenses that would be.
I was just thinking innocent things like someone's cybercrime or something like that goes after credit, and you see all these kind of things, and you have a cure period in there and all those kind of things. That's where I was kind of going, but absolutely agree with.
And there is a time frame. I mean, we're not going back to when you were a teenager by any means.
Will be the last 2 years.
Oh, that's right, I remember now. And it is something that we take super seriously, and we work anytime we have any questions with the city attorney's office, if it's something that was maybe in a different jurisdiction, because these are national background checks, not just a Georgia state check. So if it maybe is entitled something that looks like a felony in Kansas but is a misdemeanor here, we do look at those. Or even, we've had a couple of international applicants as well. So we have something that we really look at to make sure that we're not misapplying.
And they're
our own
fully
honor.
adjudicated cases at that point. We can't use anything hasn't been fully adjudicated.
Yes.
So if it's still in some sort of process, we can't use that. Which is part of why the every other year or at some interval after the initial makes sense, because there could be things on the initial that aren't adjudicated yet, but would throw them out if it were and they were a conviction.
Councilwoman Reeves.
So I was just wondering if somebody applies for a license, then they would, I'm assuming, give that permission. You wouldn't have to go back to them every 2 years, that the permission would be granted for a background check. I don't know if you have to do that.
So it would
In-
be a part of the renewal process. So
Renewal.
similar to a new application, say you're a new establishment coming to Alpharetta to get in business or an alcohol license, every year as part of the annual renewal, you have to fill out a new application. And so we would amend our application to require them to fill out the paperwork that would then require them to go to our third-party vendor to be fingerprinted because it is a national check. Yes.
Does the city have some kind of a tickler thing that sends out and says, hey, by the way, this is due, or do you expect everybody to know it when they need to renew?
Yes, we send out tons of notices. We actually just revamped our program this last renewal season in conjunction with our finance team. So it's a joint effort between finance and code enforcement, and then sometimes the clerk includes notices as well. But yes, we do include multiple reminders, both mail and through email, and then sometimes even a phone call if it's a business that or establishment that we work with regularly.
And this won't be an additional, extra burden, on our staff. It seems like this will be a lot for our staff to do.
It is going to be an extra burden on our staff, but we feel like it's important. It's important
It's
enough.
doing front-end work.
Yeah.
Rather
yeah,
than
it's,
doing it on the back end.
Yes, and it's easier to start it, than to chase somebody down and try to revoke their license after something has happened, so, yeah.
And to Brett's point, they do something similar for the massage and spa permits as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they alternated which would be background years, or are they going to be on the same timeline?
The massage spa is going to be every year.
Every year, okay, so, but there's not as many as those.
Councilman Hypes.
With respect to the applications and renewals, is it written into this that a material misrepresentation is sufficient?
It is, and that's in the code now as well.
Good.
So I think that was a big question that we kind of wanted some direction from. It seems like we have a good consensus to move forward with drafting the code that way. Another section that I wanted to make sure that we had some council direction on was, hang on one second, let me flip over to our slideshow, was kind of explaining what we do in terms of transferring of licenses. So in the city, it's very common we have on-premise consumption establishments like a Chili's or a Lazy Dog. We have our package establishments like Red's, and then we have supermarkets like Publix, Kroger, et cetera, drug convenience stores, that there may be an establishment that has either maybe a partial owner die or move or is no longer associated with the business, or they sell the business. And the way that our code is currently written, whenever there's a significant change to the license or a person involved with the establishment, they have 45 days to report that to the city and apply for a new application. Part of the reason for that is because we are also required to share our licensed establishments with the state so that they can have state licensure so that they're able to purchase alcohol from a vendor. What we have sometimes had occur within the city is that we have an establishment that has either self-reported or code has found out that there has been a change in the ownership. So at that point, oftentimes, instead of it being within the 45-day period, sometimes it's at the 60 period or a 4-month period, or it's not until renewal season that we find out that there's been a change in the business ownership. And at that time, we've done the best we can within our departments of figuring out, okay, do we cancel their license and revoke it immediately, or do we just have them go ahead and submit a new application and allow them to continue selling? Or do we make them lock up their alcohol now that it's been past the 45-day mark until they can get a new license? And so currently, we wanted to kind of gauge the council and see if you all might be interested in granting maybe a small temporary license in these types of situations, maybe for 30 days or so, that once we've learned or an establishment has reported, hey, there's been a change in my business structure and I need to add this licensee or this person, or I've sold business and now I'm the new owner, do we want to allow them to have a 30-day temporary license in which they are submitting an application, they're complying with the noticing requirements and have time to be fingerprinted and us review it to issue a license? Or do we want to say, no, you should have gotten it in within 45 days of X event occurring and you need to either lock up your alcohol or remove it from the premises? And so we kind of wanted to gauge the council's opinion. The most common place that we see this is within convenience stores, gas stations. They oftentimes change hands often. And we've seen it in a couple of smaller dining establishments, but just kind of wanted to put that out there. I don't know how many establishments we would have that we'd be revoking a license immediately and you'd go to fill up your car and grab a 6-pack and all of the alcohol would be locked up, but just kind of wanted to paint that picture for you all and kind of get some feedback.
Yeah, there is
Mayor
a little
Pro
bit
Tem.
of a little bit of a time thing there too. You know, when we went to the administrative side of the applications that really shortened that length of time, there's still, even if all the stars aligned and all the gods blessed it quickly, we have a code requirement of 14 days that it's advertised. So it's a minimum going to be 15 days that the establishment wouldn't be able to serve or sell any alcohol, not serve, sell. So we have had some, and as Lauren said, it's mostly the convenience stores. I think I don't know that it's malicious, but it happens pretty regularly.
Well,
Mayor Pro Tem.
So you said, is it malicious? So my thought is not to, instead of having a new temporary application process approval 30 days, could you just not put them on the clock from the time that we find out about it? Or that they notify us and say, okay, we've got X amount of time to get this thing done and leave it in place as it is. I'm not trying to punish these people, especially, most of them are out, they're not out there to beat the system. They just don't know.
Yep.
And I'm not going to excuse it, or if you catch somebody trying to beat the system with it, I just don't think it sounds like a lot of effort and a lot of work for something that we could just say, hey, it's duly noted here on July 20th, 2026, that either they informed us or we informed them there was an issue and it needed to change. Then you just put a clock on it. You got 30 days to change it. You got 14 days to change it. You got 45, whatever it is you need to do, and not add a whole nother step or process, if I'm hearing it right, and I may not be hearing it right, where you have to come in and get, fill out your paperwork, bring us your check, your temporary 30 days, hell, that 30 days is half up by the time he can get all that information together. And we're really kind of just burdening ourselves more than we are them. We're not losing revenue on it. I don't think, an establishment that's licensed, expired by definition, but not necessarily by time and date, is going to affect anything but us.
We could definitely do that as long as it meets the state requirements, and we wouldn't need to maybe allow, essentially allowing them to continue operating under the old license. I think
Yes.
Molly and I could look into that. So just so I'm understanding your point, just essentially continuing on the license that's already been issued to allow them 30 days to
Yeah.
perfect a new application.
Start the clock.
Yeah. And then no fee. You're proposing no fee
I
for a
mean, the fee,
temporary.
the fee, you're penalizing them, right? They're already confused and not happy and, burdened with whatever. And, oh, by the way, it's $1,200 because you didn't tell us that your partner moved.
Yeah, okay. No, I think that's great. This is great feedback, so, I think there was maybe someone else, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Brady, I
Okay.
believe, had a question.
Yeah, I absolutely resonate with Mayor Pro Tem was saying with the 30 days. I think the only difference I would say is I'm a little bit more, how do you change behaviors? There has to be some kind of penalty fee, right? I mean, if I'm late on a library book, I'm paying a fee. If I speed, I'm paying a fee, right? That's how you change behaviors in a way. You're talking transactions with businesses where lawyers should be involved, right? These things should be compliant. They have requirements, they have licenses. How do you maintain compliance? And I agree with, don't be too punitive, right? Don't know what that fee would be, but I think having a little bit of a fee there does add, to maintain a behavior, right? And that's just, I would just kind of add. And I mean, not too much, man, $200, $250. We're collecting something because it's our staff.
Potentially,
working
we
harder.
could.
I would can I piggyback that real quick? Let's say we pay them 30 days. There's a fee if they go past 30 days.
Okay.
Would be one suggestion versus, I don't like this gotcha, on this scenario, especially because of the way it's laid out. These things happen quick, right? Businesses do change hands. There's overlap in time on when it does, who really takes over when, those sort of things. So I would just like to see it smoothed out, get a time period. If you're going to put a fee, give them a bogey to avoid it, or minimal up front. If they go over 30 days, it's a little bit more. But see what other cities do.
Councilwoman Reeves.
The only problem that I could see is if somebody did actually sell their business and they actually don't own it anymore and the license is in their name and the new person, in that case, I think would have to get a temporary or put in their application. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
because that
think-
seems like, because then they're not responsible anymore. And
Right.
there's alcohol being sold and they're not responsible anymore.
And I think there was a section in our code at one time that talked about surrendering a license, in which if there was an owner who really did feel that way, they would probably maybe look into that and actually come to the city and say, hey, I'm turning my license back into you. Molly and I might be able to look at a surrendering provision in those types of situations. Otherwise, it might be included in some sale agreement between the two parties or something, but I think that's a good point. The biggest reason we're having this conversation is the way the code is written now. We don't really have anything to do, so we kind of just needed some direction of what you all would like to see. And I think the final section, because I think I would like to possibly save the big discussion for another day, would just be to hear from the council if there was any objection to expanding our hotel motel definition to include in-room service of alcohol, meaning a mini bar or the delivery of alcohol to a hotel room, which our code does not currently allow.
Councilwoman Reeves?
Yeah, I definitely think we should allow that.
Okay.
Like your flight gets in late, yeah, definitely, sign me up on that one.
Wonderful. And I think,
I've got one more.
oh, Chris has one
Yep,
more? Okay.
I've got one more that we need to hear about tonight, and then we can move on to the next session together. But I'd really love to hear about kitchens and whether or not they need to be open at all hours, that things are served or not. And I'm going to let the city attorney further elaborate on that, but she really wants to hear about kitchens tonight, and so do I. So
Thank you, Chris. So when we have had some recent issues with alcohol service in the city, there is a provision in the code that talks about the kitchen. And when we were looking at that, what it has minimums, like a 4-compartment sink, things like that. And it just says prepared to serve food every hour they are open. And I think we should add some clarity as to what that means. There's a bit of a placeholder in this draft because I'd already heard some mixed feedback from the council and what we'd heard at those meetings as to what might be intended, and didn't want to, I mean, honestly, what's in here is all the way forward, or intending to be, though it still probably needs tweaking, saying that it has to be fully operational and staffed, serving fully prepared meals. I think what I said, the kitchen shall be fully operational and staffed, offering prepared meals for sale at all times when the establishment is serving alcohol. At our most recent hearing, I think Councilman Hypes threw out, he didn't necessarily think that popcorn or nuts would be sufficient. And so I'm really interested in hearing from your perspective what you would like restaurants doing, the eating establishments doing from an alcohol service standpoint. Some of you may not think that it needs to be fully staffed, and having desserts or ready-to-heat appetizers or something like that, as long as it met health standards, would be sufficient. And so I just kind of want to hear where the direction is, and then I'll take a stab at actually really nailing down what the intent of the council is.
Councilman Hypes.
Yeah, I understand where we're trying to get to. The placeholder language, for me, definitely does not get there. I think, the council who came on the prior issue would be able to get through that. In terms of fully operational, I did a quick look here. Fully operational means capable of operating. So, if the intention is that it is operating at that time, let's just make sure that, we tighten up the language to say what we mean and mean what we say. So that's the primary thing. I know where we wanted to go. I just don't think that gets us there with your placeholder.
I think the only counter to that I would have is wanting to make sure that if we said it, if it is operational, or some other word, we'll take operation out of it, they can't serve food if nobody orders the food. And so I think the potential to be able to serve food is what ultimately we're trying to control as a city. I say we, you, just from a standpoint of if we can't require them to serve food, we can require them to be ready to serve food. I want to make sure that do you want the stove to be, available, like that meals that require the stove have to be offered for sale. Meals that require the oven have to be offered for sale. Or you find with the refrigerator and a microwave being all that they have to use to offer meals for sale. I know that's getting really into the weeds on it, but if we don't want it to be vulnerable, I just kind of want to hear your intent, and then I will probably try and make it to where it is not so wordy and awkward in the actual code.
I like the intent. I just don't know that we've worded it the way we intend to just yet.
I don't disagree with that.
Because this is the kitchen shall be fully capable of operating and staffed, so there's a person there and it's capable of being used, and the meals are still prepared at 7 o'clock in the evening and put in the refrigerator, and we're right back where we were before. And so I'm not sure what the magic language is, but
I understand that the wording in it right now isn't ideal. I just don't know. I want to know what your intent is. And I don't know if your intent is for the entire kitchen to be required to be used to serve a meal at the times alcohol is served. If that's the case, I will take out the fully operational language and make that better reflect the intent. I just don't know if that's what you're wanting at this point.
Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, I've got a little background on this. I've been in the restaurant business, management position, not just busting tables. I actually got moved to Atlanta to run a restaurant. But I think we're getting too far out on requirements individually. We've got two parts. One, there's a requirement of the establishments to meet a food to alcohol ratio. Okay? It's not uncommon for restaurants, entertainment places to have a restricted late night menu. And it's not uncommon for you to order something that they said the 80/60 because it's all gone. I'm not going to be able to meet my kitchen labor numbers if I got to keep a fry guy on until 2 in the morning when nobody's ordering anything from the fry station. So I don't want to tell them what the definition of fully functioning kitchen is, because then I got to send a detective in there to figure out when there's no guy on the salad station. So let's let's stick to the intent here, which is we are urging our establishments to meet their food to liquor ratio. We're helping them by asking them to stay available for food till their closing hours, which I think is still a little overstepping, but I'm not going to go to bat on that one. I think food is available, and if their patrons say, hey, you know, they got, you know, cheese sticks and chicken fingers and fries, and that's all that's available between 10 and 2 a.m., so be it. Who are we to say that they can't use that as their fare? I think we're overstepping our bounds. I really do. And I think we need to bring that into a definition that they're allowed to define themselves as to what food being available means. I don't know if I could get in here and describe peanuts and popcorn is not food, because at my house it is. So, you know, I'm not trying to give everybody an out or a room to cheat. I just want this thing to be done professionally and put it in their hands. And if they don't meet those, you know, if there's food not available, but if I go in and they got 2 things available, they're doing their job. They're doing what they were told to do, to have a kitchen and make food available. We already know they have a kitchen. They got a license to operate as a restaurant. I'm starting to say the same thing over and over, so I'll quit.
Councilman Bray.
I'm chuckling a little bit because you started it off the same way I'm going to start off. I have experience about it in my past, and it used to be like you're running a restaurant, right? 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you shut down the kitchen, right? Because you got staff and you got labor costs and all those kind of things. They're cleaning up the kitchen, putting everything away. They're out, keep the bar open for an extra, you know, till 1 o'clock, right? And you kind of have that gap in service, and that's to manage what your labor is. And you might have some kind of things like a late night kind of menu or peanuts or whatever that's out there. But I do agree, we have a catch-all, right? We have a requirement. We have that legal sales and alcohol sales and the food sales kind of requirement that's in place. That's our catch-all. That's our requirement, right? Getting into the details is now we're just policing granular things that, like I said, we have to be detectives out there to kind of go after. But I do, as talking about this, is give them kind of the freedoms that I think they should have. But then the other part, the punitive part, is when they break the food alcohol kind of piece. That's when we got to hold our line on those kind of pieces. But, you know, keeping a kitchen open till 1 o'clock, I wouldn't want to do that. As an operator, I would not, and I wouldn't want to have those requirements in there. So that's my addition and resonation of what you said.
Councilwoman Reeves.
Apparently, we're all going to have to get together and talk about our restaurant business. I met my husband working in a restaurant, so I know about restaurant life as well. I would venture a guess that a lot of stuff we get at our restaurants has been nuked and given to us that way. I would say kitchen is open and prepared to serve food. And I agree. It's the enforcement of what's in here. It's the enforcement of the ratio that we really want to do. Actually requiring them to be open and prepared to serve food is for their benefit so that they will be able to stay within that ratio, at least I think.
Councilman Hydes.
My wife owned a restaurant a long time ago. She actually hired 2 young brothers named Flipowitz at their pizza shop many, many, many years ago. You know, there's an overlay to this, and that is conceivably a business restaurant could make their food ratio by noon, you know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm not saying where I come down on this, but I do want to ask the question, if all we care about is 50-50, and maybe that's all we care about, but if you make your 50-50 by 5 o'clock in the evening, do we want to have establishments that then can just be bars for the rest of the evening, you know, from 5 o'clock on? And that changes the atmosphere of our environment. So we're talking about, you know, let's close the kitchen at 11 and have some cold food off to the side, and we'll meet this standard, and, you know, then we'll wind down the evening. But I don't even know, you know, we've got, you know, restaurateur in here and person who knows what's going on. I don't even know if it's possible on a 50-50 to sell enough food at breakfast, lunch, and early dinner to then just convert over to a nightclub. But if all we're saying is, as long as we make 50/50, we're happy, and we've got some hors d'oeuvres to serve off to the side, food ready to serve, I think this requires some exploration.
Come on, Councilman.
I haven't owned a restaurant. I haven't worked in a restaurant. I enjoy them. I eat at them. I mean, I think the overall is to give y'all a policy that y'all can enforce, that those that are investing inside of the city of Alpharetta understand coming in, so that we're all clearly stating what it is that we're looking for. So it's pretty apparent we're going to have a whole lot more conversation about this. And speaking of a restaurant, I'm hungry, so that's all I got to say.
They better be open and ready to serve. All right, I think we've beat the dead horse pretty thoroughly. Yep.
We absolutely got what we were looking for tonight. There's more conversation to be had, but this was very productive as the first conversation on this topic, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good.
And Mr. Mayor, after you get through the rest of the public comment reports, we do have a need for an executive session tonight.
Okay. So we have one more opportunity for someone to come forward and speak in public comment. I do not see anyone taking advantage of that opportunity, so we'll close public comment. Do we have any reports? No reports. I believe we need an executive session.
We do, Mr. Mayor. For the purposes of tonight, we may not need the second topic, but I'm going to say that we need for litigation and personnel.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to recess and reconvene.
So, second.
All those in favor of the motion? Please vote yes. And it is unanimous. Do we have a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Brady. All those in favor? Now, do we have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion to adjourn by Councilman Brady. Who was the second?
Everybody down there.
We'll give it to Driscoll. All those in favor of adjourning, please vote yes. It's unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you soon.
Alligator.